Cheryl Clarke and I run the cafe here at Emmanuel Church. This week I've been asked to talk to you a little bit about my journey through lockdown. Before lockdown happened, it was talked about quite a bit. We kind of had an action plan in place. We were hoping that I would be able to come in and bake still, and that we could give that baking out to the church community and the wider community as well, and care packages and gifts. We were also going to be a presence on social media and keep up the interaction there and just support people in any way we could. Unfortunately, when lockdown happened, none of that did. I live in a village, so I wasn't able to use public transport to come into the church. The church was then mothballed. Ingredients were really difficult to get hold of to bake anything with. And I think we just had no idea how different things would be. You know, we were talking about all the ways we could sort of carry on as normal, but none of those things really happened. So I found myself in a position where I wasn't able to do any of my cafe work really, and for a little while that was difficult. I felt like I'd abandoned the cafe in a way, but obviously I came to realise that all of those things were beyond my control, as much of this is for all of us. So there I was, sat at home. And then our new normal happened. My father-in-law came to live with us. He has terminal bowel cancer, but he also has dementia as well. He had an operation at the very beginning of lockdown. It was touch and go whether he would have it in the first place, but it went ahead and he came to stay with us. He was discharged from the hospital early. We were expecting him to be there for a good 5 days, but actually he was only there for 2. So when he came home, he wasn't exactly fully fit. He wasn't able to look after himself. And so Dan, my husband, took over nursing him really. Turns out he's quite a good nurse. But it was a learning curve for him. He had to give him daily injections, and he now has a stoma bag which had to be changed every day, and there wasn't an awful lot, if any, training that came with that, so it was all learning on the job in a way, which we're now doing every day. It's been difficult suddenly having to share your space with someone, especially when you're not able to leave that space. It's been really tricky learning each other's patterns and ways, and Dave is very keen on routine, so we sort of have to keep meal times at the same time. And I think since Dan's gone back to work, that's been a bit of a struggle for me, because I'm here all day, but you can't really relax because he does need someone to sort of watch out for him and make sure he's not sort of wandering off and such like. Obviously it's really difficult to talk to people about any of that. On top of that as well, I think for me, because I've had so much time on my hands in a way, lots of other things from the past have sort of come up, and because there's nowhere to go, no one to talk to, I think sometimes your thoughts can get really sort of overrun with things that you've maybe thought you dealt with in the past. So I've been dealing with that as well. And I guess I've been watching these videos each week and watching the services, and they're all very positive, and you know, that's great, and I'm so glad that lots of people are having a positive experience during this time. But I guess for me it's made it a little bit harder to be able to sort of speak up and say, actually, you know what, I'm finding it really tough, it's really hard. But I wanted to, I started reading this book called This Too Shall Last. And it's really about, well, it says on the front, finding grace when suffering lingers. And I just feel like at the moment we're sort of stuck in the cycle that we can't really get out of. And I know that my mind gets stuck in a cycle because I'm not able to process my emotions as well as maybe I could do at the moment. I have really been struggling, you know, I found it really overwhelming at times. And I think I just wanted to reach out really to those other people, because I know there will be some, I think it's been easy for me to sit back until I started reading this book, and you realise the patterns that you fall into, that I've shut myself off, and I don't want to be that negative ninny who comes in and says, you know, things are really rubbish, but actually they are. And that's how it is. It's not the best time at the moment, and until we give voice to that, we can't actually deal with that. And I got to the point where I realised that that was actually kind of overtaking my thoughts, and I was becoming very negative and very sad, and I didn't really want to do anything, and I didn't want to talk to anyone or see anyone. You know, I avoid those Zoom calls and all that kind of thing, because it's easier to just get on with it on your own, because actually speaking it out is really hard. Sometimes as well we feel like we should be happy, you know, life isn't that bad, there are people worse off, but actually sometimes you have to focus on yourself and say that actually I'm not okay, whatever it is, and if you're not okay with it, then it needs some attention. The book actually begins with the lines, this is not a before and after story, and goes on to say that some hard things stay in our lives until Jesus returns. So I'm here to tell a story from the middle where so many live, but so few describe. And I think that's where I'm kind of at. I think so often we want to wait. We want to wait till the story's got a happy ending, or that everything's turned out okay and we can be an encouragement to others. But actually, we need to talk to each other while we're there, because if we don't, sometimes we can't get out of that place, you know. And I want to encourage you today that it's okay to talk about it, because the longer you go without talking about whatever's going on for you, the more it becomes a barrier. It becomes a barrier between you and your family, you and your friends, and between you and God. There's a really good quote in the book that I'll just read to you. And it says, suffering does not have to be a barrier. It can be a continual reminder that there is no part of your life where Christ is not present. There is no place too low for him to stoop. There is no part of your body too inconvenient for him to love. There is no place in your memory too hard for him to hold. There is no weakness to recurring for Christ to care for. He is patient and he is present. Christ is holding us together by the power of his Spirit, wrapping scarred hands securely around the most shattered pieces of our stories, carrying them with care because he chose to be shattered first, placing them perfectly alongside his own mosaic into a mosaic of glory. So may you have courage to pay attention to him and your life. May you have courage to join Christ in your place of weakness, as a place he is working and redeeming and filling with meaning, rather than just trying to escape it, numb it, or name it as worthless. For in this place he is present. In this place, the place of your weakness, he is perfected. And I think that's, you know, it's really true. We can come up with 100 reasons why we shouldn't talk about it, why we shouldn't bring it to God. It's too silly, it's not important, we're not important. But I would encourage you to reach out, you know, reach out in prayer, reach out via text message or email to a friend. You don't have to do this alone. We don't have to do this alone, and I'm a fine one to talk, because given the chance, I'll try and do it on my own. But, you know, we're made in God's image. We're made for relationship with God and with others, and you know, part of that is sharing the good times, but also sharing those not so good times. There isn't anything you can surprise God with, you know. He knows everything. He's felt all the things we've felt. He's been betrayed, you know, he's been hurt, he was angry, and if you're all of those things, he's been all of those things, you know, it's okay. And I think Ramsey goes on to say in her book, she was very honest, and she said she swallowed the story that suffering was her own private pain, but went on to admit, in denying hard things words, I missed learning that suffering is an expected part of being God's child, and that sharing it is where the hope will rise. And I just think that's so true. You know, if we sit there in the darkness and we just ponder on these thoughts, these things that are overcoming us, we're never going to get that. We don't let the light in, the hope can't rise, and until we kind of speak it out. It's really important to give those things words and make them real. I think life is going to be difficult for a while. It's not suddenly going to get better, even though the lockdown measures are being released more and more. I think that for some people that then creates more fear. I know for myself, I haven't actually been inside another building at all. I haven't been shopping or anything for almost 4 months now. And so that is quite, it's going to be quite a thing, I think. You know, I've walked around our local area and the village and things, but actually to go into somewhere else is quite, I don't think I'm scared, but it's daunting, just because I haven't done it for a long time. It's going to be like something new all over again. You know, people are losing their jobs, people are having a tough time with money, and it's really important. I know Ian talked the other week about areas that the church is going to be working in, the sort of the church vision, and it was about the cafe and youth and mental health. And I just think, you know, it is really important that we bring those things to the front and that we start talking about them now as much as we can. You know, everyone plays an important part, as well as those of us who are finding things tough reaching out. You know, we can also be looking out for the ones that are quiet, the ones that we haven't heard from in a while, and just maybe reach out and say, hey, how are you? You know, because sometimes, you know, it's easier if someone asks you first and you can open up maybe a little bit. But it's sometimes that first step is the hardest. So really, yeah, that's my job. I just wanted to give encouragement that it's basically okay if you're not feeling okay. You know, I'm not feeling okay. Here I am. But we'll get through it. You know, we're here for each other, I hope. So I hope that you'll be thinking and praying of the cafe over the next few weeks, really. And you know, supporting church members is important, but also the cafe is here to kind of reach out into the community. And you know, Ian sort of words the other week in the vision of this living water flowing out of the church. I think that's going to be a really important thing. I think that's really really what the cafe is hoping. That sort of, you know, our vision in a way is that we will serve our community and serve up this living water. But to do that, we need to be there to support people. So, you know, as the doors of the church open and we can begin worshipping again, or thinking about how to do that, you know, just please be praying about the cafe and when and how we can open up and how we can put some support measures in place for our wider community. So thanks for listening, guys, and have a blessed week.